Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. If you are a new subscriber, welcome, and if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. Everything that I use will be listed down below. Please don't forget to follow me on all of my social medias. I will be also going live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram as well, not just TikTok, but this is a live video from TikTok, and I just had to chop it down so that it wouldn't be so long. So I'm starting off by just outlining my brows, and I'm just following the way that my natural brows grow, and I'm just outlining them as you see in the video, and adding hairs towards the front where it needed to be added. And I'm just filling in everything that I pretty much carved out, and I'm just making sure that everything is nice and straight before moving on to the other side or adding concealer to fix it up a little bit. And don't worry about if your brows is not 100% perfect, because once you add the concealer, it will come together. And I will finish up the rest of my brows and later on in the video. Now I'm just going in with some concealer. I like to use this Tarte Shape Tape concealer in the shade Deep, because I don't really like that halo look. So I like to just add a little bit underneath my brows and take the brush to work the product upwards, because I don't like, how can I put this? I don't like having so much product underneath my brows to the point that when you go to blend it out, it kind of messes up your brows. And I like to also blend that product down a little bit to my lid, and then I will go in with a different brush to blend it out even further. And as you see, I didn't go towards the front of my brows just yet, because I like to go in with another concealer for that. And I'm going to do the same with this second concealer, but this concealer is the NARS Soft Matte Concealer. This is the shade Hazelnut, and I like to just add a little bit, again, below my brows, and then work that product up, as well as blend it down to blend it out, as well as blend that into the other concealer. This gives me a more natural look versus that super bright under eye. And it's 100% up to you how you want your face to look. Do what works for you and not what works for somebody else. You can use someone else's techniques and idea and make it your own. You also can use one concealer if you want, but it just depends on how you feel. Sometimes I use one concealer, but as of lately I like to use two and then go in with the eyeshadow base. Now as you see, I'm just blending it out, making sure that everything is nicely blended before going on to outline the top portion of my brows. And to outline the top part of my brows, I'm using that same NARS concealer. You can also use your foundation shade if you want. I just like to use this concealer because it's already sitting in front of me and on hand, and plus it blends perfect with my concealer. I don't like to use a super light concealer because you can see the lightness through your foundation. So I like to use a concealer that's closer to my skin tone. And I have a natural pointy arch, so what I like to do is just round it up so that it's not so pointy, it's more rounded. And as I blend this out, you will see how much that blends with the rest of my face. It blends so perfect. And again, my brows are not done. I will finish that later on in the video. Now with the eyeshadow base, I'm going in with the NYX Eyeshadow Base, and I like to use this because it's, as you can see, it's way brighter than the concealer that I use, but once I blend it out, it will fade into those concealers and only leaving the area that I placed it in bright, and this will help your eyeshadow pigment show up even bolder. You can use a white concealer if you have one on hand. It just depends on what look you're going for. And I also like to take some translucent powder just to set that concealer into place. You don't have to do this because the eyeshadow will also set the concealer in place, but I like to set it with translucent powder because if I'm working on one eye, the other eye is creasing up, and then I have to go back and fix it before adding on my eyeshadow. And now I'm just taking a clean eyeshadow brush and dusting away that powder. And I'm going in with my Sephora Sananas Palette, and I'm going to use the I Don't Know as my transition shade. And as you can see, the color already show up just a little bit, but I'm going to build this color up just so it can show through a little more. So as I'm building this color up, I am blending it out 100% because I do like a well blended eyeshadow look. And I realized that I didn't have on my eyeshadow shield, so I went ahead and put those on. And now I'm just blending it out because I want everything to be nice and crisp. And this shade is called Lady Boss, and I'm just putting that right underneath that transition color and blending it out. I really want this color to kind of stay in that area just a little bit, but I am going to blend it out towards the inner part just to make sure that it shows through a little bit, so when I go ahead and cut the crease, you still can see a little bit of both of those colors. And with the Lady Boss, I didn't have to build this color up as much as I did the transition shade because this is like a darker brown shade, so you don't have to build it up as much. And now I'm just blending those two shades together. And to cut my crease, I'm just putting a little bit of that concealer onto the center part of my lash line and then looking up. I don't know why I tilt my head down and look up at the same time. That's what I said in the video. Excuse me, on the live. It's a habit, but you don't have to look down. You just look up and it'll give you that line at the top, which will create your guide. And you just follow that all the way around. When cutting your crease, you kind of want to take your time because you don't want to go over that transition color. You want to keep it exactly where you placed it and just follow that guide. But you also can add a little bit of concealer. You don't have to add a lot. I add a generous amount to the brush just so that I don't have to keep dipping in. I can just go straight into what I'm trying to do and then blend the concealer down a little bit and pat everything in. It's best to use a flat rounded brush when cutting the crease because it'll make it easier for you. The brush I like to use when cutting my crease is this flat Wet n Wild brush. I got this brush from Dollar Tree. You can get it from Dollar Tree, Target, Walgreens, Walmart. Wherever they sell Wet n Wild products at, they should have this type of brush that you can use. Or you can use one from whatever brush collection that you have on hand, as long as it's flat and it's a rounded brush. Also, try to use a concealer that does not dry down too fast because you don't want it to dry as you working and it's not blending out the way that you need it to blend. I like to use the Tarte Shape Tape concealer in the shade Deep and to cut my crease. I wouldn't recommend using a concealer that dry down too fast, especially if you're a beginner. And I'm also just using that brush to really pat the concealer in to help dry it down some as well before going in with another brush to dry it down. I'm checking the placement to see if I like the roundness of my cut crease. And if I like the roundness of it, then I will move on. And I like to take another brush just to blend out the edges a little bit so that the concealer in that dark brown shade can blend out and fade together. Even though you're going to go in with another brush for the brown to kind of blend it even more, you just want to make sure that everything is blended out and dried down. And I'm also going to go in with some translucent powder just to set all of this into place because I don't want this to crease up on me. And also with that same brush, I add the powder on as well as kind of like blend the powder out just a little bit. And I'm going to repeat the same steps. Going back into hashtag Lady Boss and just to blend that concealer and that shade together again, so it's not a harsh line. And as you can see, it blends together perfectly. And if you like the blend, you can move on to the other side, but I want to make sure that it's completely blended before moving on. And I only took, like, when I say a little bit go a long way. You don't want to take a lot, because then you will have to go back in with that concealer to fix it even more. Now I'm going in with this shade called Saba, and it's like a really pretty greenish blue shade, but once it goes on more of a green. And I at first was going to do it underneath my natural crease, and then I decided to just go ahead and do it for the whole entire lid, because I really wanted that color to show through once I seen the way it looked. This was my first time using this shade, and when I tell y'all, I instantly fell in love when I seen it on. I said, oh my goodness, like, I can't believe it took me this long to use it. It was so pretty. And when I tell y'all, I never have in mind what palettes that I'm going in with. I just go ahead and pick up something and just go. And now I'm going to go back in with hashtag Lady Boss just to blend those two shades together to make sure that everything is nicely blended. Okay, and now that the face is halfway finished, I'm going in with some primer. I'm using the Fenty Soft Silk Primer, and I'm just adding this all over my face. I already moisturized my face before putting on any type of makeup at all. And I make sure that I moisturize with 2 different moisturizers. And if I'm going outside for the day, I will use SPF. The foundation that I'm using is the Sephora Best Skin Ever. And as you can see, a little goes a long way. And just look at that coverage. I love this foundation. This is probably my 3rd bottle of this. And then I also have 2 more that haven't been opened. One is the regular one, and the other one is, it says glow on it. But honestly, this foundation for me already gives a glow without even having to purchase the other one. But I wanted to test them out together to see what was the difference. Now that my foundation is all blended out, I'm going in with the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. This is the shade Deep, and this is the same shade that I use for under my brows. I love to use this concealer because it highlights my face, but it doesn't highlight it too much that it's too bright for me. For some people, that looks really pretty on, but for me, I feel like it'd be too bright. And I'm just blending out my chin and my forehead. And then I'm going to use my finger to blend out the concealer on my nose. And I'm going to let the concealer sit underneath my eyes for just a little bit. If you have a concealer that is medium coverage or sheer coverage, you want to let it sit for like a minute or so, just so it can dry down a little bit, and that will give you more of full coverage. And also use a brush to blend it out. Using a sponge soaks up product, so that will cause you to use more concealer than what you want if you use a sponge. Once that concealer is completely blended, I'm going in with that same brush and adding on some translucent powder just to set that into place before going in later on with some pressed powder. And as you can see, I didn't use a lot of translucent powder because right now I don't need a lot. Everywhere else that you added that concealer, you need to add that powder because you need to set that concealer into place. And actually, when using liquid, anything, you need to set it. You need to set your makeup. And I'm just taking a little bit of pressed powder on that triangle puff and pressing in all of that powder. And you can dust it away and then go ahead and use your pressed powder. I just like to use the pressed powder to really press everything in. I don't like to bake considering I do have dry skin, but I do let in some areas the powder sit a little longer. It just depends, but it won't sit for too long because again, I don't like to bake. Going in with my all-time favorite bronzer. This is the Fenty Beauty Mocha Mami bronzer. A little goes a long way, and I like to put on a generous amount because lately I haven't been adding on any blush, and I like to just press this all over just to add some color back into my face, and then use my foundation brush to blend it out. And as you can see, I'm just blending everything and then dusting away that powder, as well as pressing that powder in and still blending out that bronzer so that I don't have any harsh lines or anything, and everything is 100% blended and nice and smooth. And because I had that kind of natural contour thing going on, I did not have to go in and add any bronzer to my nose, but I just like to add a little bit just to make sure that everything looks nice and even. And to help my makeup melt into my skin a little more, I'm going in with the MAC Prep and Prime spray. This is Pinklite, and I'm going to dry that down a little bit. I also added some NYX Radiant Spray, and I mixed a little bit of my Radiant Spray with the NYX Matte Spray. And I also sprayed that on and dried it down. And now I'm just going in with the Wet n Wild lip liner. This is the shade Brown, and I'm just adding that to my lip to outline my lip. I like to make everything a little bit bold, not too bold, but just a little bit, so that I can do an ombre lip. I always do an ombre lip. And I'm adding on some NYX Butter Gloss. This is Madeline, I believe. But everything I will be using will be listed down below. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video.